Coming up tonight here on Weather Underground, a dangerous weekend ahead. All of the ingredients now coming together on Easter Sunday for a very destructive severe weather outbreak. Strong, long-track tornadoes likely, and the threat does not diminish overnight. We're going to show you who's in that bullseye for tornadoes even into Monday morning. And in addition to tornadoes, there's a significant threat of widespread damaging wind gusts. We'll discuss why falling trees and power outages is an increasing concern.
And yet another concern this weekend, heavy rain. We'll show you where the risk of training storms and flash flooding will be highest across the still drying out south. And more powerful tornadoes. A new study shows the strength of dangerous twisters is increasing. We'll discuss why and what it means for you next on Weather Underground. Hey there, happy Friday to you. Welcome into Weather Underground. I'm Alex Wilson. We've got Mike Bettis and Dr. Rick Knabb here with us tonight to break down what, Mike, we think could be a really tough weekend for a lot of people.
Yeah, we know that this is going to be a very dangerous weekend when it comes to weather. We are pretty confident we've got all the ingredients coming together to trigger dangerous severe storms Saturday, Sunday, and then likely into Monday. This is the area of concern, especially on Easter Sunday. 55 million people could be at risk. It will include places like San Antonio, also Birmingham, Alabama. You're taking a live look at both places right now. Pretty tranquil weather for you today in a location like Birmingham. Storms will get going for us in Texas, we think, a little bit later. All right, let's set up what's going on now with our severe weather. How is it all coming together?
Dr. Knabb, you've been watching this. We've got a lot of ingredients in play. You know, a lot of times we talk about those ingredients that we look at, so to speak, when you're making a recipe. And unfortunately, a lot of the ingredients will be in play at a high level this weekend.
Yeah, and that's because there are major players in the atmosphere, high energy components that are going to be coming together this weekend. And we've been seeing it coming. And it's really on our doorstep now. And it's a couple of major features in the atmosphere. One is that middle upper level low with some surface low pressure that's been out over California. But we've also got a big middle upper level trough, long wave trough up in Canada. And watch how this plays out over the next couple of days. Again, the fast moving dashed white lines are upper level winds. The solid white lines are the mid level, kind of the pattern where the lows and the highs are. And the colors are low level spin. So we're going to watch this feature and we're going to watch this feature, and they're going to combine forces. Okay, so here's tomorrow in the evening as that trough from California gets over Arizona and New Mexico, and you see this disturbance, this trough starting to swing down. And when you get to Sunday morning, this is when you see a lot of low-level spin starting to show up. Surface low pressure, low-level spin forms out ahead of the middle upper-level trough, in large part because look at these dashed white lines, how here they spread out. Look how fast that jet is and how different a direction is. That means you're splitting apart the atmosphere at the top, and you take air away faster at the top than you do the bottom. So you get pressure to drop near the surface. And this provides that change of wind speed and direction with height in the atmosphere. And we're going to get surface low pressure to form here in the plains and then moving into the Mississippi and Ohio valleys. I'll show you what that does to the atmosphere here in a little bit. And this will be a fast moving system on Sunday evening into Sunday night. And so a lot of you are going to be affected on Sunday. And then this disturbance gets a negative tilt, and it goes quickly into the eastern U.S., and all this spin, this frontal system, makes it all the way to the east coast. So let's pick it up at the surface. Here's our low pressure in the high plains. Here's the Gulf of Mexico moisture starting to stream in on Saturday. And here's later on Saturday. Here's Sunday morning, and here's later in the day Sunday. Alex, we have a very powerful surface low, very strong low-level jet, tons of moisture and instability, the above-average Gulf temperatures. Everything is there to get the atmosphere spinning and for the instability to create perhaps a lot of supercell thunderstorms.
Yeah, we think Sunday could be a really big day, but even into the Lone Star State, you know, you've been in the bullseye for days. Storms bringing gusty winds, sheets of rain nearly every day this week. Tonight, no exception. Storms again possible for parts of Texas. Some of the areas that we're watching back into West Texas would include that I-10, I-20 corridor. Midland is the major city in the path of tonight's greatest risk for severe weather, the biggest city in the path of tonight's greatest greatest risk. A severe thunderstorm watch is in play around Pecos, areas to the east and south. So we're looking at communities west and southwest of San Angelo this evening. Already seeing a few showers popping up. And as we move forward, we'll be watching for that threat of a storm that could produce some hail, some gusty winds, or an isolated tornado. And that's exactly what the future radar begins to pick up on through the dinner time hour, right along I-10 and I-20. You can see plenty more action down into South Texas with some strong storms possible between Del Rio and Laredo, even south of Laredo. As we get into the overnight hours, San Antonio gets a little bit of activity. Starting off the day fairly quiet tomorrow. You can see by 1 o'clock, a lot of the state is rain-free. A few thunderstorms beginning to fire up near Abilene, but tomorrow could be another bigger day in terms of severe weather. Through tomorrow morning, we've got to watch for the possibility that we get some rain showers as well that could be, one, particularly heavy, and two, a few rounds of heavy rain. So flash flooding would be an issue if that were the case. So flash flooding risk at least possible from the I-35 corridor up to the I-20 corridor. So we're watching areas south of San Antonio and west of Midland. Midland, chance of thunderstorms throughout the remainder of the evening, even into the overnight hours. So before you go to bed, I want you to make sure you've got a way to get those warnings should they be issued for your area. Make sure you've got an app, a weather radio, something that's on that's going to alert you should the storms be headed your way. The next 12 hours do look like they have the possibility to bring strong storms. Mike, it doesn't look like it's going to be all the time. The storms today would be fairly hit or miss.
We're probably going to see something similar when it comes to a place like Dallas. We think a couple of different rounds will come in, but we're pretty confident you're going to get hit. San Antonio in the hill country, we're a target. Dallas, 72 degrees for us right now, and we've got hazy skies overhead. Thunderstorms, hail, high winds, flash flooding, maybe even some isolated tornadoes, all possible for us here in the Lone Star State. Let's in particular look at Dallas. So starting tomorrow, thunderstorms are coming our way. Likely in the afternoon, we'll get another round late in the day. Saturday night, there are your storms. Sunday morning, there are your storms. Finally, by Sunday night, powerful cold front sweeping on through. That'll clear you out, but look at the temperature. You're dropping down to 38 degrees. Here's the area of concern tomorrow, in particular through the hill country here, but San Antonio, San Angelo, Austin, those are the likely areas to see the most intense storms, but certainly Abilene, Fort Worth, Dallas, they'll be a risk for us as well. Here's a look at your torcons of 2 and 3 across central and south Texas here. Basically a 20 to 30% chance that we see tornadoes tomorrow. Again, in particular, I'd be worried about a San Antonio and an Austin. We seem to be dead center in the middle of that threat. All right, a couple different things to point out here. Watch North Texas, and then we'll focus on South Texas after that. You can see the storms right along the Red River Valley here, and so late afternoon, early evening, here come the storms through Dallas and Fort Worth, then through the Arklatex, and then watch this. It's overnight Saturday into Sunday. Now we're getting hit. Some of these storms could be really potent from San Antonio to Austin, then up around Abilene along I-20 as well, then eventually overspreading into East Texas, then across to the Arklatex, including much of Arkansas and much of Louisiana. With those threats, though, does come some very heavy rain. If you get multiple rounds, you could have additional issues. Dallas will be in the heart of that flood zone. You can see the departures we already have, though, from the beginning of the year. We're running some pretty good surpluses here. I look at a Shreveport, a 6-inch surplus. Dallas, we've got about a 7-inch surplus. So the ground is pretty saturated right now, and so it won't readily absorb the water like it would otherwise, and so you might get some risk for flash flooding. Your creeks or streams might fill up a little bit faster than normal. All right, there's a look at Saturday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Look at the storms coming through Weatherford and Fort Worth and Dallas and Arlington. Those storms are going to pack a serious punch and may take them a couple hours to clear. And then look at this. Another line comes in around 11 o'clock in the evening, so we're going to get hit twice here over the course of maybe 6 to 8 hours, and then it'll be more hit and miss through the day on Sunday, which the second half of your day much better than the first half, but certainly going to watch for multiple threats here across the Lone Star State to start our weekend, Alex.
Yeah, one of those threats, of course, being tornadoes. No mistaking the look of one of those. Here you can see this tornado just rolling through the fields near Hathaway, Louisiana. This was last night, and again, always becomes scary when you get to the dusk time frame of the day or overnight. Now, luckily in this case, there were no reports of injuries, but it was part of a series of severe storms that rolled across the state, and we again have to watch parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama into our Sunday. And this lines up pretty well with communities that we'd look at during the early part of the month of April. The greatest risk of tornadoes, this from the Storm Prediction Center. You can see that Dixie Alley area as well as the Dallas to Oklahoma City corridor lit up in that brightest color. And Take a look at Sunday's outlook. So we're watching Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. These are the states, also southeastern Arkansas. Don't want to leave you out. These are the states that have the greatest risk of seeing the severe weather into our Easter Sunday. I know it's Easter. I know a lot of us were excited to, kind of maybe put on some movies, hang out with the family, just, go off the grid. But really need you to be weather aware as we head into the end of the weekend, because this looks like it could be a really active, dangerous day. Even getting into the late evening and overnight into, say, eastern Alabama, West Georgia, parts of Tennessee as well. And as Dr. Knabb mentioned, we've got a lot of the ingredients very strongly in play. We've got plenty of low-level moisture being pulled to the north as our storm system really deepens and develops. So plenty of energy in place. That's not going to be an issue for us. We're going to get that air lifting. We've got warm, moist air. Then we've got powerful low-level flow out of the south. So that southerly flow at the surface will be kicking, the mid-level winds turning with height. So now we've got the shear, or that turning of winds with height, that can allow those thunderstorms to develop their own rotation, and thus that risk for tornadoes to be even higher. So we start things off Sunday morning, and you can see some rain showers spread across the area. By 9 a.m., watching portions of, say, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi. By the time we get into the afternoon, now these are the areas you want to watch. So back into parts of Arkansas and Louisiana, those are what we expect to be the stronger thunderstorms. They'll continue to push eastward as we move through the evening, even getting into the overnight. So things could remain active 1 o'clock in the morning up in Huntsville, Alabama, getting towards Chattanooga, Tennessee, even Atlanta by, say, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning could still be very, very active. So a lot of real estate and, Mike, a lot of time that we expect these storms to be moving.
The one thing about these storms, too, is we anticipate some really heavy rain and really high winds to come along with this. Not to mention there could be some tornadoes, but could be looking at extensive power outages. It's possible. Could be looking for trees to be coming down. That's going to pose a risk to you and your family in your house. A tree comes down on your house, but also may knock out power. Take a look at this. This is the tree cover across the U.S. So look at this area in particular. The eastern half of the country has tons of trees, the upper Midwest, then across the West, but in particular across the Southeast, where we've got severe weather happening this weekend. 90% of all tree roots are relatively shallow, so the water is readily absorbed by those roots. 18 to 24 inches is about the max depth. You'll see even the biggest tree roots here. The soaking rains, they are absorbed through the soil and down into the roots, but you're basically weakening, you're lubricating, in essence, that top several inches of soil, and so you're making the tree less stable, if you will. Take a look at the departures that we've had for precipitation so far this year. I'm going to circle some areas here in particular where we've had that 8+ inches of surplus of rain here. It's been a phenomenal amount of rain that we've seen surpluses for. So you can see how that overlays with the areas where we had soil moisture that's pretty high right now. I'm going to put another layer on here, kind of like this. I'm going to draw this on here, about in there. I'm going to leave that on there. Now watch when we show you how much spring leaf out we have. Trees are blooming. Many trees are fully leafed out at this point. So which states would I be concerned about? North Texas, Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, the Carolinas, then through Tennessee. So now we're talking Little Rock, Tupelo, Memphis, Nashville, Huntsville, Atlanta, Chattanooga, Columbia, the upstate of South Carolina, Charlotte, and Raleigh. All places where you may lose power with trees coming down on power lines or run a danger of trees coming down on your home, especially when you consider this area where severe weather is coming for us. Overlaying that where the tree cover is, these are the areas right in here. In particular, you've got to be very, very concerned about. Be ready potentially for power outages, Dr. Knabb. Then, going hand in hand with that, how much rain we're going to get and the flood risk we're going to have.
Yeah, so that soil moisture and that above average rainfall that you've shown where most of this April storm is going to go, that poses so many problems, not just the potential for the trees to come down, but it sets the table for not too much rain causing flash flooding. And the nice weather you're getting, the big high pressure sitting over the Mid-South right now in the Southeast is deceptive. You might be thinking, oh, that's drying things out. But no, the moisture is still very high in the soil, and we've had too much rain. So we are primed for flash flooding, and we're going to get some heavy rain out of this storm. So here we are on Saturday evening. Here's our low pressure coming out of the central high plains, and there's the heavy rain coming into Texas. Look at all those isobars pointed right out of the Gulf of Mexico, a very deep, moist flow. So here we are into Sunday morning, a strengthening low pressure system. So that intensifies the moisture flow, adds to the instability, adds to the ability for there to be plenty of moisture for there to be really high rain rates. It is going to rain very hard, especially in the areas here in North Texas into Arkansas tomorrow night into Sunday morning. Now, look at Sunday. Our low pressure system will intensify even more as it moves eastward. And so the rain rates will be really high. You could get 1.5, maybe locally 2 inches per hour. And when that rain gets into the Appalachians, the mountains will help squeeze out some of the moisture as well. So this is really a high-end rain event potentially. Look what we could be dealing with Sunday night into Monday morning. Likely flash flooding here, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Georgia, into much of Tennessee and the Appalachians, and a large area could get flash flooding. So there are so many reasons to be staying off the roads. Look at the rainfall totals. Here's the European model, and I don't like the GFS anymore. In fact, it's got more than ½ inch of rain in portions of the Tennessee Valley. Wow, we got everything on the table this weekend.
Yeah, it could be a real issue for a lot of people, even outside of the most severe areas. Well, coming up on the show, time to prepare for the dangerous weekend. Severe outbreak is now, and we're going to show you some of the essential items you need to have in your safe room or your shelter. And of course, we'll continue to monitor cities in the path of this weekend's storms, including Jackson, Mississippi. Some showers late Saturday, but the big event coming in Sunday.
Well, heavy snowfall has blanketed Maine. Check this out. And while Mainers know better than to put their snow boots and their snow shovels away just yet, this much snow right before Easter weekend, that's a bit much, right? An insult to injury for those looking forward to spring. This is plowable snow, folks, right? What a winter blast that we have had. The last 3 days have proved fruitful when it comes to snow, that's for sure. Look at this. We've had some snow in northeast Ohio, a good chunk of Pennsylvania, western and upstate New York, and look at the heavy snow we've had across New Hampshire and Maine. Some places double-digit snows. Caribou, you had over 10 inches, actually the second biggest single-day April snow in Caribou history. Still snowing. Look at this. Right through the highest peaks in West Virginia and then southwest Pennsylvania. Here we go. Now in Pittsburgh, it's 43. You've got lower elevation, warmer temperature. Same for you in a place like Morgantown and Beckley. But pretty interesting to still see the blue on the map this late in the season. You can see the snow falling for us on the map around Binghamton. We're 34 degrees right now. In Albany, we're a little bit warmer in the Capital District. We're 45, so it's all rain. In Burlington, just warm enough for rain. But I wouldn't be surprised if you might mix over to a little bit of snow. All snow for us in Maine. That's where the coldest temperatures are right now. In Bangor, 36 with the snow. Still snowing for us in Caribou at 31. And in Rangeley, you're 30 degrees with the snow. I'm sure it's pretty. And maybe it's a nice opportunity to get out there and do some snowmobiling for the last time this year. But the thing about it is that snow's on its way out. It'll end for you overnight tonight. You might have a still cold north wind as we go through the day tomorrow. But overall, the trend is for the snow to back off for us here, and nothing's going to happen for us along I-95. Again, marginal amounts of snow still to fall, and mostly in the highest elevations for you here. Let's take a look at a place like Bangor, wrapping up for you this evening, and then generally temperatures at or slightly above freezing as we go through the night. But tomorrow morning offers some sunshine, something we haven't seen in quite a few days, Alex.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about the snow. My mom wanted me to tell you, Mike Bettis, it was snowing this morning.
Well, you're her daughter. Might say Alex Wilson. It was snowing.
No, she likes me to tell you too.
She likes me better, Alex. So now we know.
She's a big fan of Mike Bettis. She only ever calls him.
Here's the funny thing too. If our viewers don't know, your mother is still bitter because we did not get to dance.
No.
Her and I did not get to dance at your wedding.
Yeah.
She's still bitter.
She's still mad about it, and she's never going to let Mike Bettis forget it.
Maybe one day when you renew your vows,
yes,
her and I will get our dance.
Exactly. She's actually going to text me now and be like, yes, tell Mike Bettis I am still angry about that. But yeah, they got snow in the Lehigh Valley, and instead of snow, some of you getting in on some big wins. Some of you getting in on a little bit of both. Maybe you're bitter about that, right? Boston, take a look. Right now, we are sitting at 43 degrees with winds gusting around 30 miles per hour. So they are kicking. Light rain. Ugh, it's kind of a gross day out there, but I guess one where you're most likely sitting inside. So at least you're not missing anything, right? You know, sometimes it's hard to get one of those picture perfect days where it's like 60 degrees or I guess 70 and you're thinking, I'd love to be at my favorite Mexican restaurant out on the patio right now. No, you're not missing anything today, so no worries being stuck inside. There's the snow that continues. Everything doing just fine at the airports. Of course, less capacity right now, running with fewer people, but they are getting those flights that are going out. D.C. gusting to near 40 miles per hour, 30-mile-an-hour gusts in Boston and Binghamton, around Pittsburgh and New York City as well. So all across the Northeast, things are on the move in terms of the winds. Even Buffalo gusting to 35 miles per hour. And we move things into the late evening and overnight. And you can see overall the winds begin to die down. However, they'll remain strong as we get into Saturday along the coast, northern New England, and around New York City, D.C. Still could be seeing those winds gusting, 20, 25 miles an hour, even around Pittsburgh tomorrow. So I would say we go from gusty winds today to breezy conditions tomorrow, with the exception of New England. Mike?
Now, our temperatures have been incredibly warm of late. So nice. Now, Indianapolis, even with the sunshine today, we only managed about 49 degrees this afternoon. We're going to get a little bit colder weather irking its way back down here. So you can see that all the first 10 days of April, it's been very warm in the eastern half of the country. But now look at this. Shocker here, even down as far south as Charlotte, North Carolina, Huntsville, Alabama, Rome, Georgia. We've got frost advisories in effect and freeze warnings up to I-70. So a lot of different places where I hope maybe you haven't put in your garden just yet, because you're going to have to cover it up tonight. That cold front came on through, and with the clear skies tonight, it is going to be crystal clear and cold. Temperatures for us, though, as we go Monday, 15 to 20 degrees above average. And then look at this, Tuesday, we've got really cold numbers overspreading the middle of the country. Potential record lows early next week. It's going to include the upper Midwest here. Look at some of these numbers in the teens for us here. Minneapolis, 19, close to a record low. Sioux City, similar for us as temperatures drop below 20 degrees. Wednesday, still chilly across the country. And the third week of the month, very likely that a good chunk of the country is going to be below average for a change, Alex.
Yeah, for a change, right? We've been talking about warmth, and then we chill out. Coming up on Weather Underground, we've got much more on Sunday's potential tornado outbreak. You want to stay tuned for this. We'll talk about why all the ingredients are coming together to fuel that significant severe threat across the South. And, of course, we'll continue to track city by city, including San Antonio. You could see storms later this evening, but again during the day tomorrow.
The coronavirus pandemic, not inevitable, but a potential consequence of the way we live our lives.
Well, welcome back into Weather Underground. I'm meteorologist Alex Wilson. Mike Bettis in the lab. Mike, you're tackling an important issue after the show tonight, or part of the show tonight.
That's right. We've got pandemic prophecy. We're going to look at the worldwide spread of pandemics like COVID-19 and what it can teach us about the other global threat we face, being climate change, and how the two are intertwined. Fascinating look. It begins at 7:30 tonight, a half hour that's very informative. I hope you can tune in. And now for the very latest on the coronavirus, here's what we know at this hour. The number of deaths worldwide has surpassed now 100,000. In the United States, there have been almost 1,700 deaths reported in the last 24 hours. Right now, there are more than 475,000 confirmed infections in the United States, and the IRS says people who have authorized direct deposit for their most recent tax filings will start receiving their stimulus payments next week. And some health experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci of the National Institute for Health, saying social distance restrictions do seem to be working, but it's far too early to ease them. Alex, we know the social distance guidelines creating some anxiety for people who may have to seek shelter outside of their homes and somewhere else if they're caught up in severe storms this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've talked about this getting into severe season. A lot of times, you know, you go to those storm shelters, whether they're, a building in your neighborhood, say that they've got set up, especially if you live in a mobile home park. You know, those buildings are less than ideal. You do not want to be in one of those during one of these severe weather events. But now is a great time. If you know somebody who maybe lives in a nearby town that would have a safer building, call them up. Say, hey, do you mind if I hang out with you on Sunday? Because it's better to, keep the group smaller. But let's be honest and let's be clear. if there is a tornado warning, if there's a tornado headed your way, head to the shelter, because that risk far outweighs, of course, the risk of not social distancing. So I want to make sure we are encouraging people to definitely seek out those storm shelters, because they're going to be very important as we head into the weekend. We're 2 days out from what we think could be a really big severe weather event. As we head into the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday are going to be active, but Sunday, unfortunately, Easter looks like it could be the really big day. Gulf of Mexico moisture pulled to the north, warm air as well. So, all right, we've got warm, moist air. And if you watch even a little bit of Weather Channel, you're like, okay, I know those are two factors. Of course, we've got our storm system headed our way, cold front setting up. There's that accumulating snow in the cold air. In the warm air, that's where we will likely see that severe weather. We've got wind shifting with height. We've got very strong low-level flow. So we've got a lot of factors in play that will lead to the severe outbreak and perhaps also the flash flood threat. And don't want to forget about a wintry blast heading to a good part of the northern tier. Sunday, again, this day brings the greatest risk of severe weather. Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. These are the 4 states that have the greatest risk, but really anywhere from East Texas into Georgia and Tennessee. I want you to be extremely weather aware heading into the weekend. And Dr. Nab, we're 48 hours away, so now is the time. As I mentioned, maybe call a friend, say, hey, can I be at your place or in your own house? Think about where's your safe spot and what you need to have in there.
Yeah, lowest level, most interior room. Hopefully you are identifying where that safe room is going to be. But once you've identified that, what do you want to take with you or have with you in that safe room to enhance your survival? What if that safe room that you're in is somehow compromised and debris starts flying? The one thing that I make sure I'm going to have in that room for my family is some kind of padded covering, like a big mattress. This happens to be an inflatable mattress. That way I can put it uninflated in our safe room, inflate it if the tornado warning is issued or when the tornado watch is issued, and we all go under it. Seriously, this could provide that extra padding if there's any flying debris. Now, you all get under that, but also I would recommend putting on a bicycle helmet or any kind of sports helmet. It will just prevent any flying debris from hitting your head. It would lessen the chance of real critical injury to your head. Now, after a tornado happens and there's debris around, you might get hurt, right? And you want to be able to administer immediate first aid to someone in your family before help can come. And also, wear shoes with a closed toe in that's solid, because if you have to walk through a debris field afterward, that will prevent serious injury. And I will assume, Mike, that everybody's going to have their cell phone or their no weather radio to keep tabs on the warnings.
I sure hope so. It's the easiest way to get them, that's for sure. Dr. Nab, great stuff there. Thank you. And coming up here on Weather Underground, with a dangerous severe storm outbreak imminent, the time to protect your home is now. We're asking an expert the number one mistake homeowners and businesses make when it comes to preparing for severe weather events. All right, so this coming Monday, we have got a brand new episode of Highway Through Hell on a special night for you. And the crew is pushed to the limit, and it could be the end of the road for one member of the team.
That thing's gonna come over hard.
This time on Highway Through Hell.
Wow.
A lost load
Bears, keep an eye out.
puts Jamie's crew
Stand back.
over the edge.
No, watch out.
It's another stuck excavator.
A sinking feeling
I gotta sink out of sight.
places Al on a perilous path.
Oh!
And
Hearing rumors you want to leave.
is it the end of the road
You need to give me a decision one way or the other.
for Colin?
I need to know.
Got an all-new Highway Through Hell this Monday night, a special night, 8, 7 Central.
Well, heavy rain in Southern California creating a number of problems today. Here in San Marcos, a driver became stranded after ignoring warning barriers. Fortunately, a Good Samaritan arrived, helped push that stranded vehicle out of the water. Parts of State Road 78 in San Diego County, they actually had to get shut down because of the flooding. Police have been urging drivers to slow down after there were dozens of accidents involving slick roads. The only ones who should be out there are the ones you're looking at. the ducks, right? Stay off the water, leave it to the pros. Well, one example, a Jeep ran off the road near Market Street and I-15. It wound up down an embankment surrounded by rushing water. There were 2 people in that vehicle, so emergency responders used rafts and a ladder to get them out of danger. Both passengers were able to make it safely to shore, so a good outcome there. We look at what's happening, or what's happened first, across parts of the West with some of the bigger rainfall totals along 15 there between Los Angeles and San Diego. There, 3 to 5 inches of rain has come down. So we've seen the problems around San Diego, points north, 20 reports, 17 of those flood reports. So high water continuing to be an issue. Temecula still getting in on some heavy rain showers, and we remain under a flash flood warning in Riverside and San Diego counties because of the rain that continues to fall. And you can see really just working over the same locations as that band of rain moves from south to north. So continuing to see problems as we've got that area of low pressure really just sitting and spinning over the region. Vegas, you've seen some rain showers as well, but moving forward, the best chance of flooding remains where we're dealing with it right now, around and north of San Diego. So San Diego up towards the Temecula, you guys could see that likelihood for more flash flood warnings and more flash flooding. Future radar, we move through the remainder of today, still dealing with those rain showers, finally begin to kick this system out as we get into the overnight and through the day tomorrow. So some good news there in terms of alleviating the flash flood problems. You know, rainfall has been welcome, especially the snowfall up in the northern mountains, the higher elevations, southern Sierra, central Sierra, and northern Sierra. Mike?
Well, now when we're talking about the flooding rain that we've seen today, and you notice this happening for us near Mount, oh my gosh, I can't even, Manville. My eyes are failing me, folks. Manville. Look at the water here. This from the North Dakota Department of Transportation. We've had way too much rain, and now we're about to get some wintry weather that comes in, but a 25-mile stretch here, both north and southbound lanes shut down. Other roadways, by the way, have been affected as well, so alternative routes are needed. Still don't know why those vehicles are going through it if it's shut down, right? But you take a look, but those Department of Transportation, they're probably just putting out the cones at that point. Look at this. Whole nother world now. Now we got the snow rolling in. This is going to be tonight through Monday, so right through Easter weekend. Look at this swath of snow. Impressive. And I think the most impressive part might be right in here. Around, maybe the Twin Cities. Up through Rhinelander, Wisconsin, Marquette, Michigan. Could be looking at 5 to 8 inches of snow coming our way through Easter. It's a stunning amount of snow. And across the northern Rockies, it's coming for us as well. We've got to get the temperatures down somewhat here. But beginning tonight, rain and snow overspreads Montana. Here it comes in Missoula, in Helena, and in Billings. And the farther north you go up toward the Canadian border, you're going to be first to get it. And your temperatures will be just cold enough, too. Plus, elevation will certainly enhance your snow. Down through Jackson and Yellowstone, we'll get the snow here in Wyoming. And then look at this, the Black Hills of South Dakota end up getting the rain-snow mix that eventually all snow. But that could go all the way down into Denver and maybe even down into northwestern Kansas here. Could we be maybe flirting with a little rain-snow mix around Wichita, Hays, Kansas? That's possible. Kansas City right on the line. North side of town, you might get a rain-snow mix. In Des Moines, similar for us. There's a look at Denver's forecast. I mean, the changes we go through in the Mile High City are stunning. 68 degrees for us tomorrow with sunshine. You might be hiking in shorts and t-shirts. Then look what happens. The bottom drops out. We're 22 with a mix to snow on Saturday night, and then snow wrapping up the morning. Sunday, high temperature, just 30. Then back into the teens, Alex. Monday morning. That is a crazy 3 days.
Yeah, I don't know whether to sweat or get goosebumps. That's crazy bananas. That's a little bit of everything, but I guess that's what Denver's known for, right?
True.
Well, when we come back, as severe season ramps up, hurricane season looms, we're helping protect your property. We're going to explain why reinforcing just one area of your home could be the difference between minor damage and disaster. And, of course, we continue to watch this weekend's severe weather threat. Sunday morning, scattered storms around Memphis with more during the afternoon. got a special treat for you, an all-new episode of Heavy Rescue on a special night. This one is coming up on Monday. An icy wreck and a miscalculation leads to a jaw-dropping situation.
We call this rapid deceleration.
This time on Heavy Rescue 401.
Okay, Eric, on you.
Eric
Don't move.
goes under.
Do not move. No.
A dump truck
This is a mess.
slams into rush hour traffic.
Reds, release, release, release.
And an icy night.
Snow, ice, guys flying by us at 100 miles an hour.
Is a bust
Look at the front bumper.
in Cornwall.
That is an all-new Heavy Rescue coming up Monday night at 9/8 Central, because Mike will be with you during their usual time on Sunday.
That's right, because severe weather's coming. We'll be on the air live with you to help you get through it. This is the area on Easter Sunday that we are concerned about, and it's a large area. We think damaging storms are going to strike and very likely destructive tornadoes as well. The most prominent area is highlighted in purple here. That'll be Alexandria, Louisiana, up through Jackson, Mississippi, including Birmingham, Alabama. But even in the areas outside of that in the darker red, that's also an area where tornadoes could be possible. Literally about 55 million people are under that risk for severe weather, and we think this is a very potent severe weather outbreak. So let's go into Sunday morning. Starts here in the Arklatex. Things get going. And then through the afternoon, watch how the storms are going to start to form here. And exactly where they form, unknown at this point. We're kind of giving you a flavor of where they hit. And then just after the sun sets, Middle Tennessee, down through Mississippi, up across the Ohio River, all areas that get hit. Then through Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia as you go through the overnight hours, then hitting across the Carolinas early Monday morning.
Well, with a weekend of potentially damaging storms ahead and hurricane season less than 2 months away, it's time to talk about protecting your home. Joining us, Dr. Tanya Brown-Giamenko. She is the Managing Research Director for the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Also bringing in Mike and Dr. Nab for this discussion, too. I think, Tanya, a lot of people forget about their garage doors during severe weather and hurricanes. So what should people be doing to reinforce them, and why?
So a couple of things that you can do is look and see if you have a wind-rated garage door. If you do have one, there'll be a nice label on it that tells you that it's wind-rated, tells you what that wind rating is for. If you don't have a label, there's a chance that you don't have a wind-rated door. Actually, it's pretty likely that you don't. In which case, one thing you could consider doing is using a temporary bracing kind of a system. You can find information, DIY instructions about those kinds of things online. That's the best thing that you can do. Unless you're willing to step up and change it out for a wind-rated door.
We know that our garage doors are pretty susceptible. Are there other areas of our homes that we should concentrate on for high wind events?
Well, we're always looking to make sure you trim back trees, clean out gutters, those simple kind of maintenance activities. A lot of times those things can lead to enhanced damages. Those are the kinds of preparatory steps that you can make at this point in the season if you're not doing a major change to your building.
Now, Tanya, are there any DIY ways that people can reinforce their garage door, or is this something really they need to have a professional take care of?
Well, if you're looking for kind of a temporary solution, which would probably be a good idea if you're like in a hurricane-prone region, there are temporary bracing systems that are out there. There's lots of DIY tips and videos and tricks and things like that. If you're looking for something permanent, you really want to go with getting a new garage door. There's really not been a lot of great success stories about reinforcing an existing door for a permanent situation. So if you want something that's permanent, work with a professional installer to get a wind-rated door.
And also, have you, in your research, identified that garage doors are implicated in a lot of tornado damage situations, or is it really mostly a problem with hurricanes, or is it both?
It's actually both. We've done a study that looked at trying to compare exactly that. Were they more likely to fail in hurricanes versus tornadoes? What we found is that they were more likely to fail in the hurricane scenarios, but actually if they failed in the tornado scenarios, they were more likely to cause additional damage to the roof and walls, like you saw in the video where the wall or roof would kind of blow out. So more severe if they fail in a tornado.
We talk about everybody forgetting about the garage doors. Are there any other areas of the home that people forget about in terms of securing their home?
I think the roof is an area that people should pay attention to. If you're noticing that your roof cover is worn out, tired out, starting to curl up, starting to lift up, that's a huge issue. That's a huge area for concern, and you might want to bring a professional in to check those things out to make sure that you've got a system that'll work before the severe weather shows up.
Well, Dr. Tanya Brown-Giamenko, thanks so much for being with us with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Some great tips there, and hopefully things we can do maybe now to be prepared for weather this weekend. Well, coming up here in our next hour of Weather Underground, much more on our top story. We've got a dangerous tornado outbreak likely this weekend. We're going to break down the timing and where the threat of significant long-track tornadoes is increasing into Easter Sunday. Coming up tonight on Weather Underground, a dangerous weekend ahead. All of the ingredients now coming together on Easter Sunday for a potentially destructive outbreak with strong, long-track tornadoes likely. And the threat does not diminish overnight. We'll show you who's in that bullseye for tornadoes right into Monday morning. And in addition to tornadoes, there is a significant threat of widespread damaging wind gusts. We discuss why falling trees and power outages are an increasing concern.
And yet another concern this weekend, heavy rain. We'll show you where the risk of training storms and flash flooding will be highest across the still soggy South. And more powerful tornadoes? A new study shows the strength of dangerous twisters is increasing. We'll discuss why and what it means for you next on Weather Underground. Welcome into Weather Underground on this Friday. I'm Alex Wilson. We've got Mike Bettis and Dr. Rick Knabb here with us. It's Friday, Mike. I know, given the current situation, a lot of us like to, put the phones away, turn off the TV for the weekend and kind of get into like a Zen mode. But this weekend, you can't ignore it.
No.
We think we've got a really big, severe risk setting up, especially for Easter Sunday.
Exactly. A time where a lot of us do want to tune out, but we believe about 55 million Americans are at risk for severe weather and potentially tornadoes and long-track, strong tornadoes. The South in particular will be a target beginning Saturday, lasting through Sunday night and likely even into Monday. A location like San Antonio and a place like Birmingham, both targets this weekend. So let's talk a little bit more about what's coming together here. Our Dr. Rick Knabb joining us tonight. What's the setup here, Dr. Knabb? Explain to our viewers what's coming together and why we're so concerned.
Mike, it is two major features in the atmosphere in the middle and upper levels that are going to come together over the middle of the country, and they're going to combine forces to generate a strong and strengthening surface low that goes across the South, especially on Sunday, and that's going to make the moisture, the instability, the wind shear, all of it come together for a potentially destructive severe weather event and a lot of heavy rainfall and flooding. Here's component number one, that big low that's been over California, that's going to be moving eastward. And then we have big long wave trough over the northern U.S. and Canada. Those are going to phase up. Watch what happens in the European model. The fast-moving dashed white lines are the upper-level jet stream, and the solid white lines are the mid-level troughs and ridges. And then the colors are low-level spin. And you'll see how this all comes together. Watch how this feature and this feature come together over the weekend, especially when you get to Sunday morning. They're kind of starting to phase up here. And look at these dashed white lines, how they are splitting apart over the southern plains. That takes air out of the top of the atmosphere faster than you can replace it at the bottom, and pressure at the surface starts to lower quickly. That's why you start to see those colors show up, and that's low-level spin starting to get going. Later in the day on Sunday, this shortwave trough that came from California will be very energetic. It'll get lots of low-level wind shear. The Gulf will be supplying moisture from the south at low levels, and the mid levels will be coming from the southwest. So there's your wind shear, and all this cold air with this trough will provide a lot of instability. Later on Sunday, it quickly moves eastward, but not quickly enough to save us from some heavy rain. And this is going to be a very energetic system, especially south and east of that low level, that shortwave trough. Now let's watch the surface here. Here's our surface low getting together on Saturday. Here's the moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. That's where you're going to have the thunderstorms and heavy rain potential on Saturday. But then Sunday, look at this low pressure strengthening, very strong low-level jet, and then you got the mid-level jet at a different direction. That creates the wind shear, tons of moisture and instability, and that low will continue to strengthen. So that warm sector is going to be extremely energetic late into the day Sunday, even overnight Sunday into Monday morning. So, Alex, it is going to be a very multi-hazard event, and we have high confidence because of the significant, big, energetic features in the atmosphere coming together this weekend. There's just no doubt about this one.
And Sunday looks to be the main event, but storms out there tonight and even into the day tomorrow. Lone Star State, Texas, you've been in the bullseye for days. Storms have brought gusty winds, sheets of rain nearly every day this week. Tonight, no exception. Storms likely across West Texas. Tomorrow, more areas in Texas dealing with severe weather. So here's today's severe risk from I-10 to I-20. Midland, the biggest city in the path of today's storms. You can see we've got a severe thunderstorm watch to the west and southwest of San Angelo around Pecos, points south. So parts of I-20 and I-10 included within this. And we do have one severe warned storm already off to the south and east of Pecos. We take a closer look at this one. Could be producing hail and gusty winds. So severe criteria: hail greater than an inch, or winds 60 miles per hour or greater possible out of the storm. Crane and Pecos, the city is Imperial in the path of this one. This is to the north of Fort Stockton, Texas, between I-10 and I-20, kind of splitting the difference between those two highways at this point. Future radar, we'll watch that area for the storms. Also, South Texas could see some storms as we move into the late evening, early overnight hours. Even areas west of San Antonio getting in on some of that rain. I think San Antonio could start the day with a rumble of thunder, but by tomorrow afternoon, now we're again watching portions of, say, Dallas and Houston. Mike will talk more about that in just a moment for the severe weather. Flash flooding also going to be a risk into tomorrow morning. So in addition to the severe threat, storms could produce some really heavy rainfall that may leave us dealing with some flash flood warnings also. Midland, really as we get into the mid-late evening and overnight hours, at any point you could get a thunderstorm. Doesn't mean it's going to be thunderstorming the whole time, but the possibility is there, and be prepared that these storms could be strong or severe. Have a way to get the warnings if you are sleeping. So apps, weather radios, super important in nights and really days like this, Mike.
For sure. Now, what's going to be a rough start to the weekend, we think in a place like Texas. Dallas, you might get several rounds that come in for you. In San Antonio, likely a nighttime round that comes for you that could both be very, very dangerous. Strong winds, damaging hail, potential for some flash flooding. It's all on the table for us. What a week it's been in a place like Texas. Dallas, we're pushing 100 a couple of days ago. Now the temperatures then cooled dramatically, and now you're in for severe weather. We've got it all, don't we? Here's Dallas, and this is a nuts forecast. Saturday, here come your storms, and multiple rounds, Saturday and Saturday night. Wrapping up on Sunday, and the second half of your Sunday is better, but then with that cold front coming through, clear and windy Sunday night, it's down to 38 degrees. You might even have a chance for some frost in the northern suburbs. There's a look at the risk area. In particular, it's the Hill Country, Austin, and San Antonio, but I would not rule out in any way, shape, or form severe weather in Dallas and Fort Worth. Our Torcon tomorrow, 2s and 3s, central and south Texas, so 20 to 30% chance of tornadoes, the area in pink, the more likely location. Here's a look at the future radar. I'm going to show you the wide view, then I'm going to narrow it down to a little bit closer view. You can see Dallas, 6 o'clock in the evening, getting hit pretty hard, then over toward Texarkana, then another round comes in later. But here we go now, Sunday overnight. Look at these storms really start to blow up now in the Hill Country, and then storms around San Angelo and Abilene as well. So these nighttime storms could be very, very dangerous. And then through Sunday, heading through East Texas and then Louisiana and Arkansas. Flooding will be a concern, especially with multiple rounds coming through North Texas here. I-20, probably not a corridor where you'd want to be, and be prepared for high water. And the ground is saturated, so we're already now predisposed for more flooding. Look at the surplus we've got going on here. Springfield, 7-inch surplus, 6-inch surplus, 7-inch surplus. So we've got a pretty saturated ground, so the ground's not going to absorb the water as readily as it would if we're just a little bit drier. All right, promise you a little bit closer view. Here's a look at Dallas. There we go, 4 o'clock tomorrow. Look at the storms racing through town. Some of those could be very potent with hail and high winds. There's the second round now coming in. Check out the clock at the top there, 11 o'clock in the evening. So 2 different rounds here, Alex, in a matter of about 6 to 8 hours. Be prepared for both.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, damaging winds, hail, and of course the threat of tornadoes. Take a look what we spotted on Thursday. This was in Hathaway, Louisiana last night. Once again, scary image of a tornado just churning through a field. One home lost its roof during the storm. No reports of injuries, though, luckily. It was part of a series of severe storms moving through Louisiana. And Louisiana, again, in our threat zone as we get into Sunday. Again, Sunday looks to be the tippy top of the severe days in terms of the next several days. Each day offers up severe weather, but Sunday we think will be a big one. In terms of early April and where we oftentimes see severe weather, the areas that we're watching this Sunday are very much in line with where we are oftentimes looking at. There's Sunday's risk zone. So the purple, that's the greatest risk zone. But even in that dark red, I want you to be very aware of the likelihood of strong storms moving through your area. Possibility in that bright shade of red from Houston over to, say, the Big Bend of Florida, approaching Savannah, around Orangeburg, South Carolina, east of Charlotte, North Carolina. A lot of communities are going to be affected by storms Sunday and also Sunday night. So these storms will continue after the sun goes down. As we get into the end of the weekend, we've got plenty of moisture swinging in out of the Gulf of Mexico. So that warm, moist air will be streaming in. Ample energy in place out ahead of that cold front. Powerful low-level flow out of the south. So winds out of the south at the surface, but our mid-level and upper-level winds coming from different directions. They're turning with height. So that allows our storms to develop those rotating updrafts, produce those tornadoes. So unfortunately, we've got a setup that's really conducive or helpful for thunderstorm and tornado development, unfortunately. As we get into the morning Sunday, I think there's going to be some showers and storms out there. But what I want you to watch during the afternoon is parts of Louisiana and Arkansas. Notice how these areas of dark green and yellow begin to pop up during the mid-afternoon. That continues to push east late afternoon. And this is what I think is going to be that area where we have those supercell thunderstorms, so those individual storms that could produce hail and the likelihood of tornadoes. Storms continue even as we get into the very early morning hours of Monday. So Huntsville to Atlanta to Chattanooga, it could be, say, an 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. threat for you. And even in a Charlotte or a Greenville, South Carolina, 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday could continue to be offering up some strong storms. And then on top of that, Mike, we've also got to watch for the likelihood of flash flooding a little farther to the north of the greatest severe risk. But now you get into those areas with a lot of topography, parts of Tennessee and the southern Appalachians.
It's very dangerous. And to your point, timing is everything. And even before this weekend's expected tornado outbreaks, it's been a week of fierce storms, heavy rain, damaging winds, tornadoes across the southern plains and into the south. So it's been an exhausting week for so many reasons. And now we've got more worries as we head into this weekend. And another thing to think about is that threat for power outages. We get some strong straight line winds. We get tornadoes. We're going to lose power. And so many of us have our fridges full right now. We don't want to lose that food in our fridge. If you've got a generator, I think about checking it right now, gas it up, be prepared to use it and use it wisely. Here's some perspective on why we're concerned about power outages. You look especially at the south where we're forecasting severe weather. Look at how much tree cover there is across the south. It's a forest in essence, right? And you think about the roots of a tree. 90% of all tree roots are relatively shallow because they need to absorb the water, the rainwater that falls. So that water comes down through the ground, gets down to the roots, they soak it up. But if you get too much water, it weakens the soil. It makes it a lot looser and it's easier for the tree to topple over because that top layer of soil isn't compact anymore. It's been very wet across the south. You look at this area right in here in particular, most places 8 inches plus for the year so far. Now you overlay that in the areas that are seeing departures of soil moisture here. The soil moisture is very high across a good chunk of the south. The exception being I-10. I-20 and I-40 have a ton of moisture in the soil right now. And so that area that we just showed you is kind of this area right in here, all right? Look where the spring leaf out has happened. So our trees have full canopy now. They're going to be kites in essence. They're going to catch a lot of wind. They're going to topple over a lot easier for us here. There's the severe weather area with the tree overlay. This could be very, very dangerous for us. So please, please, please be ready for power outages, Dr. Knapp. That could be life-threatening for some people, not to mention now the flood risk that comes with it, too.
Yeah, and what you just showed also reminds me, Mike, that we should tell everybody to treat a severe thunderstorm warning for sheltering in your safe room the same way you would a tornado warning. Because if those trees are coming down on your home, you want to be in your lowest level, most interior room. Now, flooding is going to be a problem, too. Now, Mike just showed you how wet the ground is and how much rain we've had in the south. Now, you're getting this really dry, calm air mass right now. You might be thinking, oh, everything's going to dry out over the next couple of days. It doesn't dry out that fast. We're still going to be very vulnerable to flash flooding. And when you get into Saturday evening, as that low strengthens, the low-level moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico will be streaming in. I mean, the stronger the low is, the stronger the flow off the Gulf is, and the more moisture you add. I mean, a stronger low is bad for so many reasons. And then when you get to Sunday morning, that low will strengthen even more, and the rain is spreading farther inland. And again, look at all those isobars, just a tremendous low-level jet and moisture convergence in this area. So again, tomorrow night into Sunday morning, North Texas into the Arklatex area, even in northern Mississippi is where the flash flooding could occur. But then it gets worse farther east. Let's pick it up on Sunday. Later the day on Sunday, that low is strengthening some more as it goes northeastward, and the moisture content pooling up in the Gulf Coast states, in the Appalachians and the Tennessee Valley will be tremendous. And you'll even get some very heavy rain going through Georgia and South Carolina and North Carolina. The rain rates will be very heavy. It's going to be pouring and blowing. 1.5, maybe 2 inch per hour rain rates in some spots as this goes through. So that's why you add all that up, falling that heavily on saturated grounds and into mountainous areas, in hilly areas. We've got likely flash flooding, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Georgia into Tennessee, and even this wider area, Alex, is extremely vulnerable to flash flooding. Stay off the roads. My goodness, how many reasons do we have to stay home this weekend?
Yeah, again, I know a lot of people maybe had a different idea for what they were going to do this weekend, but the weather really demands that you stay put. So coming up on the show, the time to prepare for this weekend's severe weather is now. And we're going to show you some of the essential items you need in your safe room or shelter. And we'll continue to break down city by city forecast for the weekend severe weather, including Jackson. Could be a really stormy day Sunday.
All right, did you see the snow that fell in Maine? In Oakland, in Yarmouth? I mean, now Yarmouth is just outside of Portland, the suburb of Portland. I mean, we got absolutely shellacked with snow. But northern Maine and Caribou, you had 10.3 inches, your second biggest single-day April snowfall on record. So many of us are looking forward to springing into spring. You know, it's Easter weekend. This is not what we were hoping for, right? Look at some of the snow we've had the past 3 days from northeast Ohio all the way up into Maine. In fact, we actually had some snow down into West Virginia. We had some snow in Michigan. A lot of different places saw snow with a really big cold front that came through. We've still got a little bit of snow, highest elevations in the southern Appalachians even here. Charleston, we're at 47. We're not getting any snow. Pittsburgh, we won't get any snow either. We're just too warm. Syracuse, 41. We're probably not getting any snow, but a place like Binghamton, we had snow last hour. It might be off and on for us. Lighter bands of snow hitting us right now. Lehigh Valley, we're going to get some snow, but it's just light stuff here. The heaviest of snow has been across Maine, and it's still snowing for us in Caribou and Holton and in Bangor right now. We're 35 degrees. Portland, wouldn't be surprised you get another flurry or two. We had huge power outages here. That's been a real struggle with snow and with freezing rain. I think at one point here we had about 250,000 people today without power. Now here's a look at what happens for us as we go through the rest of the evening. The snow really starts to back off for us here. There's not a ton of accumulation still to go here, and most of us will just see some flakes for show. I think most of the accumulating snow has already happened for us, but some isolated spots there, or you might get another, say, 1 to 3 inches of snow. All right, let's break it down for you in Bangor here. The snow about to come to an end. Again, you might still get some flurries out there, but for the most part, you're done with the snow. The temperatures are going to stay near, maybe slightly above freezing as we go through the night, and then tomorrow morning you get some sunshine that comes back out. That'll be nice to see, and some melt. But Alex, a late season snow that really had a huge impact in the state of Maine.
Absolutely, and if the snow weren't enough, you've got wind. Some of you who didn't get the snow still got the wind. Boston, you've got the rain, light rain showers right now. Winds gusting around 23 miles per hour. Not causing problems at the airport. We know there's less volume at a lot of the airports, but still, it's not really making for problems in terms of delays. It's just making it a little bumpy if you are on a flight that's going to be taking off. Visibility down to 6 miles. So we've got some gloom overhead with the gray skies and the light rain showers. Airport delays, again, everybody doing okay despite the snow showers and those gusty winds. Winds right now gusting 40 miles an hour in D.C. and New York City, 35-mile-per-hour gusts in Binghamton, near 30 miles an hour in Buffalo and in Bangor, and just over 30 miles an hour in Pittsburgh. So you can see it's pretty expansive, that wind field across sections of the Northeast. And moving forward into the late evening and overnight, for many locations it backs off a bit. I think winds will stay strong overnight into New England and then on to the Appalachian Mountains there in the state of West Virginia. But tomorrow afternoon, we remain breezy across the area. Winds gusting 25, 30 miles an hour in a Pittsburgh, in a D.C., a Buffalo, a Portland, Maine. So I would say that we go from a windy day today to a breezy day tomorrow, particularly the farther north you live and closer to New England. But Pittsburgh, another spot that overnight winds relax. Again, winds around 5 to 10 miles an hour, but tomorrow afternoon they'll pick up again and be a little bit on the breezy side. Mike?
All right, so we know that we've got some serious cold that's going to accompany a lot of different places, and that will include from the northern tier right into the Northeast, right? Take a look at some of these April temperatures. Now, up to this point, it has been so warm, especially the eastern half of the country, all right? This is April. A lot of places 5 to 10 degrees above average for the first 10 days of the month. But now that the cold air settles in, look at these. We've got frost advisories in Charlotte, in Raleigh, Huntsville, Nashville, all these places where things have already bloomed and come out. Hopefully you didn't plant your garden yet. I'd recommend covering them up. Got flowers that have bloomed, cover those up. Columbus, Ohio, freeze warning for us. Lexington, Louisville, Charleston. These are all places where the temperatures get mighty cold for you tonight. Look at these forecast lows. In Detroit, we'll get down to 31 degrees, 32 Minneapolis, and then colder yet as we go into early next week. Because look at these numbers, 15 to 25 degrees below average from Montana and North Dakota all the way down to the panhandle of Texas. And it doesn't change much on Tuesday. That cold's got a grip on us now. So we're getting in these patterns that are sticking around longer. The warm patterns are sticking around, and now the cold pattern is going to stick around for a couple of days. And I know it gets cold in Minneapolis, but it's going to be 19 degrees Tuesday. Near record setting for us. Sioux City 18, Rapid City 15 degrees, and even on Wednesday, the expanse of the cold now spreads across the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, the South. In the third week of April, mighty cold for millions of Americans, Alex. Mighty, how the tide has turned for us here.
Yeah, and the forecast like that makes me think of one thing and one thing only: pizza. And it's Friday night, in case you're forgetting what day of the week it is, like I am. Treat yourself. You made it. Maybe you worked from home all week. You've been watching the kids. Let's keep it easy tonight. Get yourself some pizza in Burlington, where temps are very pizza worthy, upper 30s. And don't forget, tip your driver well. Have a great night.
Friday Night Pizza Forecast, brought to you by Domino's. Order online at Domino's.com.
The coronavirus pandemic, not inevitable, but a potential consequence of the way we live our lives.
Welcome back to Weather Underground. I'm meteorologist Alex Wilson. Mike in the lab. Mike, tonight during the 7:30 portion of the show, you're tackling an important issue.
Listen, this country and truly this world is going through unprecedented times. We've got a special for you tonight, Pandemic Prophecy. We're going to look at the worldwide spread of a pandemic like COVID-19, what it can teach us about other silent threats like climate change and how the two are intertwined. It all begins at 7:30 Eastern, right after Weather Underground. Some eye-opening stuff, hopefully you'll stick around for. Well, not to the very latest on coronavirus, and here's what we know at this hour. The number of deaths worldwide has now surpassed 100,000. In the United States, there have been almost 1,700 deaths in just the last 24 hours. Right now, more than 475,000 confirmed infections in the U.S., and the IRS says people who have authorized direct deposit for the most recent tax filings will start receiving their stimulus payments next week. And some health experts, including Dr. Anthony Fauci of the National Institute for Health, are saying the social distance restrictions do seem to be working, but it's far too early to ease them. I think that's kind of the consensus at this point, Alex. That the thing is, social distancing guidelines, they create anxiety for a lot of people, especially those that know severe weather's coming this weekend and they need to find shelter somewhere else. They don't live in a safe place, and so they're trying to find shelter somewhere else, which may mean they've got to go somewhere else where there are other people.
Right, but we have continued to say that with this threat being so high, and when you're dealing with something like a tornado threat, an imminent threat, you've really got to work with the most life-threatening threat at the moment. And for, I think, a lot of us this weekend, it will be the likelihood that we have tornado warnings and tornadoes across the area. So make sure you get into that storm shelter. Make sure you reach out to a friend. That's the best thing to do. Then you don't have to go to the storm shelter, maybe with your entire neighborhood. You can call a friend who may live in a sturdy shelter and say, hey, is it cool if maybe we come over to your place Sunday? We can kind of sit on different sides of the room and watch television. But you want to make sure you're looking out for yourself, because this weekend, especially Sunday, look to be very, very dangerous. Warm air building north as we head into the weekend, cold air moving southward. So we've actually got a big threat of snow as well across a good chunk of the country, including accumulating snow, but across the warm air, severe storms and likely a severe weather outbreak, including that higher possibility for tornadoes. We think as we get into the second half of the weekend, it's Easter Sunday. I know maybe you were hoping to just get out in your backyard and enjoy some quiet time. Not going to be the case across sections of the South. That's where we think the severe outbreak will be likely, and also a risk of flash flooding for many locations. So here's Sunday's threat. Really anywhere shaded in any color could see thunderstorms. The areas I want you to watch most closely, that darker shade of red, and then of course the purple. The purple zone, that's where we've got the highest chance of severe weather, including tornadoes, but likely even outside of that in that darker shade of red. So Dr. Knapp, we are 48 hours away. Now is the time you can be doing things to get ready, especially when it comes to your safe shelter.
Yes, you need to identify that lowest level, most interior room in a sturdy structure where you're going to be when a tornado warning is issued. But I also want to share with you what I do with my family, and I can recommend that you can do to take with you into that safe place or to put there today, or when the tornado watch is issued. One thing that I make sure my family has is some kind of large padded object to put over us when the tornado warning is issued. It can be a mattress of any size. It could be a couch cushion. This just happens to be an inflatable bed that I can leave deflated in my safe room, then inflate it when the tornado watch or warning is issued, and we all get under it. Seriously, this can be a very safe thing to do to enhance your safety if the safe room you're in is compromised and debris starts flying. This provides added protection. Also, for every person that's in your safe room, I would say have a bicycle helmet or some kind of hard sports helmet to provide additional protection for your head against flying debris. And then if there is damage to your home or wherever you're sheltering, there is the possibility you might get hurt. You want to have a first aid kit in that safe room so you can administer first aid immediately before help comes, and you'll increase your chances of a quick recovery. And then also, if there's a debris field you have to walk through after the tornado or severe thunderstorm goes through, you want to have boots, solid closed-toed shoes, so that you don't walk onto sharp objects. And also, Mike, I would presume everybody's going to have their cell phone or their NOAA weather radio to keep track of the warnings.
Absolutely critical stuff there, Dr. Knapp. Thanks for show and tell there. Hey, coming up on Weather Underground, with a dangerous severe storm outbreak imminent, the time to prepare is now. We're asking the expert the number one mistake homeowners and businesses make when it comes to prepping their homes and businesses for severe weather events. This Monday, we've got a new episode of Highway Through Hell on a special night for you, too. The crew is pushed to the limit, and it could be the end of the road for one member of the team.
That thing's gonna come over hard.
This time on Highway Through Hell.
Wow.
A lost load.
Bear, keep an eye out.
Puts Jamie's crew
Stand back.
over the edge.
No, watch out.
It's another stuck excavator.
A sinking feeling
I gotta sink out of sight.
places Al on a perilous path.
Oh!
And
Hearing rumors you want to leave.
is it the end of the road
You need to give me a decision one way or the other.
for Colin?
I need to know.
An all-new Highway Through Hell on a special night, Monday night, 8/7 Central.
Well, heavy rain has been causing widespread flooding in Southern California. And unfortunately, a couple of feet of standing water isn't enough to deter some drivers. Look at that. Oh, the wake from this car spreading out, heading into the other parked cars nearby. A number of roads, including State Road 78, actually shut down because of flooding. Police have urged drivers to slow down after dozens of accidents involving slick roads and limited visibility, and some drivers getting stuck in that water. One example of the problems that we've seen, a Jeep ran off the road near Market Street and I-15. It wound up down an embankment surrounded by moving water. There were 2 people in the vehicle, so emergency responders used rafts and a ladder to get them out of danger. Both passengers did make it safely to shore, so hats off to the first responders there. But the rain in California has been an issue over the last 48 hours. Take a look. Plenty of 3 to 5 inch totals right there along I-15. So we're looking at areas between LA and San Diego. That's where we've seen some of the really heavy rainfall. And within that zone, 20 reports of flooding or flash flooding. So obviously that rainfall has led to widespread problems across this part of the state. Still under a flash flood warning for Riverside and San Diego counties because of rain that has fallen and continues to fall. So we've got that area of low pressure, and that's just keeping the rain moving essentially from south to north over the same locations and just adding more and more and more rain to the areas that are already really saturated. There you can clearly see the swirl of that low pressure. It's going to be there for a few more hours, but then it's going to kick out and unfortunately be somebody else's problem as it moves into sections of the south this weekend. Through tomorrow morning, greatest possibility of flash flooding around San Diego and points to the north, also to the east. But look, it's not much longer that we deal with the persistent rain showers. I'd say through the evening, overnight really begins to move on east of the LA and San Diego area. And so through the day on Saturday, much drier conditions can be expected. But Mike, we obviously know that storm or that area of low pressure will help to fuel this weekend's severe threat.
100%. You know, we have flooding today in Manville, North Dakota here. And North Dakota Department of Transportation sending this video. You know, we've got Interstate 29, basically a river, a 25-mile stretch, both north and south, shut down. Other roadways in the area also affected by the high water. So we go from flooding to then back to winter, believe it or not. We're going to go right back to snow across the northern Rockies and then the plains. Check this out. The snow to come beginning tonight, lasting through Monday. Look at the swath here. It's impressive. As far south probably as Kansas, Denver, Boulder, we could get hit. And then look at this, the Twin Cities. Could 5 to 8 inches of snow be coming our way? It's very possible. The cold air is really filtering southbound here, and that's going to allow the snow to come in bucketfuls here. Right now, warmer for most of us are getting rain. Elevation is going to cause you to get some snow here, but watch how it all plays out. We start to now get the colder air into Montana. Rain mixes over to snow, then eventually goes over to all snow. That'll include Missoula and Helena. It'll likely include Billings and Glendive. Then going farther south now, Jackson and Yellowstone, Casper, the Black Hills of South Dakota, and Rapid City. Look at the snow coming down into Colorado, Nebraska, portions of Kansas too, where the scattered storms then are on the front sides. A very dynamic system with the severe weather to the south, the snow to the north here. Look at the snow now. North Platte, Omaha, a mix for us. Sioux Falls and Sioux City up toward the Twin Cities. Here comes the snow for us. There's a look at Denver's forecast. It is nuts, folks. This is a crazy forecast. Almost 70 degrees for us tomorrow. In comes the cold air. In comes the snow. 22 Saturday night, just 30 for a high on Easter Sunday. That's crazy. The snow ends in the morning, and then with the clear skies overnight on Sunday night, or clear ring skies overnight on Sunday night, start out with some clouds. It'll get down to 15 degrees for you in Denver. How about the forecast in Omaha? Crazy for us too. 65 tomorrow, rain to a rain-snow mix on Easter Sunday, and then snow Sunday night as the temperature bottoms out at 24 degrees, Alex. It is just a wicked contrast of seasons in just a weekend's time.
Yeah, stay inside. If that doesn't make you want to stay inside, I don't know.
You want to quarantine in that kind of weather.
Absolutely. Well, hey, when we come back, as severe season ramps up and hurricane season looms, we're going to help you protect your property. And we'll explain why reinforcing just one part of your home could be the difference between minor damage or disaster. And of course, we're monitoring this weekend severe threat, timing it out city by city for you, including around Memphis. Storms possible Sunday morning, but Sunday afternoon, watching for the likelihood of severe weather. And Memphis, you're not alone. We'll break it down coming up. We got a special treat for you, an all-new episode of Heavy Rescue on a special night. This one is coming up on Monday. An icy wreck and a miscalculation leads to a jaw-dropping situation.
We call this rapid deceleration.
This time on Heavy Rescue 401.
Okay, Eric, on you.
Eric
Don't move.
goes under.
Do not move. No.
A dump truck
This is a mess.
slams into rush hour traffic.
Reds, release, release, release.
And an icy night.
Oh.
Snow, ice, guys flying by us at 100 miles an hour.
Is a bust
Look at the front bumper.
in Cornwall.
That is an all-new Heavy Rescue coming up Monday night at 9/8 Central, because Mike will be with you during their usual time on Sunday.
That's right, because severe weather's coming. We'll be on the air live with you to help you get through it. This is the area on Easter Sunday that we are concerned about, and it's a large area. We think damaging storms are going to strike and very likely destructive tornadoes as well. The most prominent area is highlighted in purple here. That'll be Alexandria, Louisiana, up through Jackson, Mississippi, including Birmingham, Alabama. But even the areas outside of that in the darker red, that's also an area where tornadoes could be possible. Literally about 55 million people are under that risk for severe weather, and we think this is a very potent severe weather outbreak. So let's go into Sunday morning. Starts here in the Arklatex. Things get going. And then through the afternoon, watch how the storms are going to start to form here, and exactly where they form, unknown at this point. We're kind of giving you a flavor of where they hit. And then just after the sun sets, Middle Tennessee, down through Mississippi, up across the Ohio River, all areas that get hit, then through Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia as you go through the overnight hours, then hitting across the Carolinas early Monday morning.
Well, with a weekend of potentially damaging storms ahead and hurricane season less than 2 months away, it's time to talk about protecting your home. Joining us, Dr. Tanya Brown-Giamenko. She is the Managing Research Director for the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Also bringing in Mike and Dr. Nab for this discussion, too. I think, Tanya, a lot of people forget about their garage doors during severe weather and hurricanes. So what should people be doing to reinforce them, and why?
So a couple of things that you can do is look and see if you have a wind-rated garage door. If you do have one, there'll be a nice label on it that tells you that it's wind-rated, tells you what that wind rating is for. If you don't have a label, there's a chance that you don't have a wind-rated door. Actually, it's pretty likely that you don't. In which case, one thing you could consider doing is using a temporary bracing kind of a system. You can find information, DIY instructions about those kinds of things online. That's the best thing that you can do, unless you're willing to step up and change it out for a wind-rated door.
We know that our garage doors are pretty susceptible. Are there other areas of our homes that we should concentrate on for high wind events?
Well, we're always looking to make sure you trim back trees, clean out gutters, those simple kind of maintenance activities. A lot of times those things can lead to enhanced damages. Those are the kinds of preparatory steps that you can make at this point in the season if you're not doing a major change to your building.
Now, Tanya, are there any DIY ways that people can reinforce their garage door, or is this something really they need to have a professional take care of?
Well, if you're looking for kind of a temporary solution, which would probably be a good idea if you're like in a hurricane-prone region, there are temporary bracing systems that are out there. There's lots of DIY tips and videos and tricks and things like that. If you're looking for something permanent, you really want to go with getting a new garage door. There's really not been a lot of great success stories about reinforcing an existing door for a permanent situation. So if you want something that's permanent, work with a professional installer to get a wind-rated door.
And also, have you, in your research, identified that garage doors are implicated in a lot of tornado damage situations, or is it really mostly a problem with hurricanes, or is it both?
It's actually both. We've done a study that looked at trying to compare exactly that. Were they more likely to fail in hurricanes versus tornadoes? What we found is that they were more likely to fail in the hurricane scenarios, but actually if they failed in the tornado scenarios, they were more likely to cause additional damage to the roof and walls, like you saw in the video where the wall or roof would kind of blow out. So more severe if they fail in a tornado.
We talk about everybody forgetting about the garage doors. Are there any other areas of the home that people forget about in terms of securing their home?
I think the roof is an area that people should pay attention to. If you're noticing that your roof cover is worn out, tired out, starting to curl up, starting to lift up, that's a huge issue. That's a huge area for concern, and you might want to bring a professional in to check those things out to make sure that you've got a system that'll work before the severe weather shows up.
Well, Dr. Tanya Brown-Giamenko, thanks so much for being with us with the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. Some great tips there, and hopefully things we can do maybe now to be prepared for weather this weekend. Well, coming up here in our next hour of Weather Underground, much more on our top story. We've got a dangerous tornado outbreak likely this weekend. We're going to break down the timing and where the threat of significant long-track tornadoes is increasing into Easter Sunday. Coming up tonight right here in Weather Underground, a dangerous weekend ahead. All of the ingredients now coming together this weekend for a potentially destructive severe weather outbreak with strong long-track tornadoes likely. And the threat does not diminish in the overnight hours. We'll show you who's in that bullseye for tornadoes Sunday and into Monday. In addition to tornadoes, there is a significant threat of widespread damaging wind gusts. We discuss why falling trees and power outages are increasing concerns.
And yet another concern this weekend, heavy rain. We're going to show you where the risk of training storms and flash flooding will be highest across the still drying out south. And more powerful tornadoes. A new study shows the strength of dangerous twisters is increasing. We discuss why and what it means for you next on Weather Underground. Hey there, happy Friday to you. Welcome into Weather Underground. I'm Alex Wilson. Mike Bettis, Dr. Rick Knabb here as well. We've got a lot to break down, including, Mike, unfortunately, into our holiday weekend when a lot of us maybe wanted to just do an Easter egg hunt in the backyard with the kids. Yeah. We got a big severe threat.
That may not be possible in some places because really dangerous weather may be setting up, especially across the south. We're pretty confident now. The ingredients will be in place to trigger dangerous severe storms. That will include widespread areas throughout the south. 55 million people at risk. It starts tomorrow in Texas, spreads across the south, so really from San Antonio to Birmingham, Alabama, and beyond. So let's bring in now Dr. Rick Knabb to set it up for us. Dr. Knabb, why are we so confident this is going to be a severe weather outbreak?
Mike, it has to do with there being big players in the atmosphere that we can already see coming together that are going to join forces to create the shear and the lift and the instability and moisture. And we're just a couple days out from the worst of it. And when you're that close and the models start to agree on how this is going to play out, we have a pretty good idea of the areas at risk. Now, let's talk about these big players. One of them is that big spin that's been over California all week long. We've been waiting for that to eject out eastward. Well, that's about to start happening. And we've also got big long wave trough over Canada, and that's going to have another disturbance kind of moving along and combining with our southwestern low. Watch how this plays out in the European model. Now, we've got the fast moving dashed white lines. That's the upper level jet stream. And the solid white lines are the mid-level troughs and ridges, and the colors are kind of the low-level spin. So here's our mid-level and upper-level spin over California. But watch this disturbance come out of Canada. And when we get to Sunday morning, right here, you see how this is all starting to phase up a little bit and take on a little bit more of a neutral or negative tilt, meaning it's tilted back this way. That causes, among other things, if you look at these dashed white lines, they're spreading apart. Look at that strong jet over Texas into the Gulf of Mexico. There, the winds are going this way. Here, the winds are going this way. You're spreading apart the atmosphere at the top. And that takes out air at the top faster. You can replace it at the bottom, and you get lowering pressures at the surface. That's why we start to see the low-level spin. And you get a lot of wind shear. Here, this is low-level energy coming in this way, and the mid-level winds are coming in this way. There's the change of wind speed and direction with height. And this will be a very energetic trough trough that came from California and now be coming through Texas and the Mississippi Valley as we go into Monday. And it will be moving quickly to the east, but not fast enough that we won't add up some very heavy rainfall totals. Let's look at the surface. Okay, here's our high pressure that we're enjoying right now, but here's the developing low pressure coming out of the central high plains. And tomorrow evening, there's our low. Here's the southerly flow out of the Gulf of Mexico. The more you have strong southerly flow, the more moisture you get out of the Gulf of Mexico. So as this low strengthens, that moisture transport and instability will increase. So here's Sunday morning, and then we go later in the day, Sunday evening. This low will be strengthening as we go. So in the warm sector here, Alex, we're going to have the wind shear, we're going to have the lift because we're going to have frontal systems, and we're going to have the instability and moisture for long track tornadoes, supercells, hail, strong winds, heavy rainfall, flooding. Everything is in the mix for a dangerous Sunday.
Absolutely. And even between now and then, still going to deal with severe weather in spots. The threat really only going up, though, and Sunday will be the peak day. But Texas, Lone Star State, you've been in the bullseye for days. Storms have brought gusty winds, sheets of rain nearly every day this week. And tonight, no exception. Storms across parts of the state. It's West Texas tonight that's dealing with that greatest risk of severe weather. There's our threat zone. So Midland, portions of that I-20 corridor down to the I-10 corridor. We've got a severe thunderstorm watch in effect around Pecos, points to the south and east until 10 o'clock local time. So this does include portions of I-20 and I-10, right in line with where we were watching for that threat. A few thunderstorms have popped, all severe warned at this point. So hail and gusty winds likely out of these storms. I think hail, the big threat, though, and even seeing a little bit of that eagle winged look. When you get that V shape, because that updraft is so tall, the winds actually begin to go around it, and so you begin to see that V shape take over. Crane, Pecos, Upton counties there under a severe thunderstorm warning until 7 o'clock. Have a little bit of that notch on that northern storm. It's Pecos, Reeves, and Ward in the western storm. Those are the counties under the warning. And then up to the north, we watch the I-20 corridor as well. South Texas dealing with some heavy rain and thunderstorms. We're going to watch our storms currently moving through the area. You can see the location not right on, but generally the fact that there's not many in that zone, the model has that in line. Look what happens as we get into the late evening and overnight. We lose our northern storms, and South Texas will be watching for the possibility of some strong storms, also the possibility for some heavy rainfall. So in addition to severe weather, watching for the possibility that we deal with some flash flooding issues from areas around and north of Midland all the way down to communities south of San Antonio. So along the I-35 corridor. Midland, chance of thunderstorms with you until the overnight hours. Even tomorrow morning could see a hit or miss thunderstorm, Mike.
All right, we know there's going to be a rough start to the weekend in Texas. That's going to include a San Antonio and a Dallas, and storms will come at different times for both of these places. And for some of you, it might happen while it's dark out, maybe even while you're trying to sleep. Damaging hail, high winds, and tornadoes are a possibility. And there's also a risk for some flash flooding because we'll get multiple rounds and heavy rain. So let's talk more about the threat for Dallas beginning Saturday, and then another round Saturday night, and then another round Sunday morning. And then by Sunday night, once the system clears you, it's cold. It is down to 38 degrees, but at least the weather's a lot calmer for you. So let's walk you through this. The area, especially in bright red and then the dark red, is at greatest risk. This dark red area includes the hill country of Texas, but Dallas and Houston could also see some pretty nasty storms. Torcons of 2 and 3, so 20 to 30% risk of tornadoes for you tomorrow. I want to show you the future radar because I think this does a really good job of giving you, at the very least, the timing and the flavor for how strong the storms will be. And you can see it's the Red River Valley getting hit just after lunchtime tomorrow, then coming through Dallas, probably right before or at dinner time. So we're getting hit hard, then going through the Texarkana area. You can see more storms coming to Dallas. And then look at this overnight now, 4 o'clock in the morning, a couple of more rounds come in. And now it's San Antonio and Austin's turn. Again, middle of the night, potentially very dangerous stuff while you're sleeping. And then Sunday, noontime, Tyler to Texarkana, through Little Rock, through Alexandria, through Shreveport, Jackson, Mississippi. We're all getting hit now. The flash flooding is going to be a prominent thing with these storms because of the multiple rounds of storms, maybe even training of thunderstorms. That dark green area, I-20, Fort Worth, Dallas, over near Shreveport. And the ground is fairly saturated. We've had a decent amount of rain so far in 2020 with big surpluses, 7-inch surplus in Dallas, 6-inch in Shreveport, 7-inch surplus for us in Springfield, Missouri. So a close-up view now of Dallas. I want to give you the specifics on this. Watch the timing at the top of the screen here. 4 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Look at the big complex of storms hitting us in the Metroplex. Then you'll get some scattered showers after that. Then another line coming through around 11 o'clock in the evening. So 2 different rounds here. Both of them could be potent. I think the first one stronger than the second one, but the second one may do us in for flooding, Alex.
Yeah, and then we get you into Sunday, and that's when we think the big day arrives. We reach the peak of the severe weather. This is Hathaway, Louisiana last night. At least one home lost its roof during this storm as a tornado rolled through. No reports of injuries, luckily. This tornado reported out of a series of severe thunderstorms that were rolling across the state. And Louisiana, one of those states that we watch this time of year for the greatest chance of tornadoes. Early April, greatest risk would be from Oklahoma City down to Dallas, but then our secondary corridor through Dixie Alley. And this is right in line with where we're going to be watching into our Sunday. So we look at the Sunday map, areas in purple, greatest risk. But anywhere in the deep red or the purple, I want you to be prepared for the likelihood that you get strong or severe storms and that chance of tornadoes Sunday and Sunday night. Now, outside of that, in the bright red, that red shading, still possibility that we could get some strong storms even outside of that zone. So there's a lot of real estate to watch, but red, dark red and purple, these are the areas where I want you to be prepared. What are you going to do if a tornado warning is issued? Do you know where your safe spot is? I want you to figure that out now, because Sunday, unfortunately, looks like it could be a really big day for severe weather. Reason is, as Dr. Knabb mentioned, we've got that low-level moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. So we know warm, moist air mass in place ahead of that front. Ample energy will be available across the region. Then our low-level winds are out of the south. So we've got southerly flow, a strong southerly flow at the surface level. You get into the mid-levels of the atmosphere and we get those winds turning with height. So now winds turning with height could allow those thunderstorms to develop those rotating updrafts and then develop tornadoes. So unfortunately, we think the parameters or the ingredients are really going to be conducive or helpful for severe and tornado development. Future radar out there Sunday morning. We've got scattered showers and storms across the region, but I want you to watch as we get closer to noontime back into parts of Arkansas and Louisiana. Now during the mid-afternoon, we begin to see those storms really begin to show up. Areas in yellow, that's where I think we're going to be seeing those strong thunderstorms. Those roll east as we go through the evening, late evening, and overnight as well. Could be looking at a Huntsville, at Chattanooga during the very early morning hours of Monday. Same for Atlanta and Greenville, South Carolina. So, Mike, this is going to be a continued threat even while you're sleeping.
It's going to be nasty. It's going to be scary for a lot of people. And this coming as we've dealt with plenty of severe weather this week. A fierce week of storms, heavy rain, damaging winds, tornadoes in the southern plains and across the south, in Texas and in Mississippi. Just some of the images that we've seen this week. And we've got a lot of soil moisture across south. It's really been saturated. 2020 has brought us a ton of rain. We've got a lot of trees. So that wet soil and trees may prove to be a tough combination for us this week, and I'll explain why. Look at the tree cover map, especially in the eastern half of the country. Tons of trees, and in particular, we're talking about severe weather in the south. It's a forest across the south, right? Well, you take a look at, the anatomy of a tree, if you will. 90% of all trees have roots that are fairly shallow, no more than 2 feet below the surface. So it rains, the water is absorbed by grass and then down into the soil, and the roots absorb that moisture, and it feeds the tree, right? Well, consider this, okay? The rain comes down, and then it soaks in, and it's not going to weaken that layer of soil underneath, because when it's got a lot more moisture in it and doesn't have the solid compounds of dirt, well, then it's much more susceptible to toppling over. Take a look at how wet it's been, especially across the southeast. The departure from average is anywhere between maybe 8 and 12 inches in some places here. So I'm going to outline a particular area here. This area here where we're pretty darn wet, right? I'm going to leave that outline on there and then show you where we've got the current spring leaf out, where trees are already leafed out. There are numerous states that are going to run into problems with tree leaf out, and that's an issue in North Texas, Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee. Why is that an issue? Because severe weather's coming into those areas. So keep this in mind. You've got wet soil, you've got fully canopied trees that are going to catch a lot more wind now than if they didn't have those leaves on those trees, and then you bring in a lot of wind. It's a recipe for power outages, Dr. Neb. We want everyone to be aware of that threat this weekend, and not to mention that comes with the flood risk too, because the heavy rain goes hand in hand with it.
Yeah, so not only do we need to be paying attention to the tornado warnings, we need to pay attention to the severe thunderstorm warnings, because the strong winds, even without a tornado, could bring down those trees onto your home because of the moist soil. That'd be easier for that to happen. And flash flood warnings that could be numerous, especially on Sunday. Watch how this high that's providing a lot of dry weather right now is going to be moving out of the way. And that dry weather, don't let that fool you. The soils are still going to be moist when the rain comes to the Mid-South and the Southeast. Now, here comes our low tomorrow at this time. The Gulf of Mexico definitely open for business, and we get the heavy rain, as Mike has been showing you, in northern Texas into the Arklatex region. That will continue into Easter Sunday morning as this low strengthens and the moisture out of the Gulf becomes even more of a fire hose, really. And so just on day one of the weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning, we could have that flash flooding, DFW area, Shreveport, Little Rock, even over into northern Mississippi. But then, just like for most of the other parameters, Sunday will be an even worse day for flash flooding overall. Watch what happens as Sunday moves on. The low strengthens and moves northeastward. The moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico becomes even more powerful, and a lot of instability, and all that energy in the atmosphere is going to make for very high rain rates. It's going to be pouring and blowing. It's going to rain hard, and on that moist soil, flash flooding will be very much a distinct possibility. And because of the direction the low is taking, some of you will get heavy showers and thunderstorms multiple times, the training that we often talk about, until the front finally kicks things through. So here we go, Sunday night into Monday morning, likely flash flooding here in the Tennessee Valley, the Appalachians, and a larger area surrounding that. And then I would say, Alex, that South Carolina, North Carolina into Virginia could get some very heavy rainfall out of this. We're looking at totals from the models that are near a half a foot in some places. So this is bad news that could lead to some significant flash flooding. Just another reason to stay off the roads.
Absolutely. Stay put, stay safe this weekend. And coming up on the show, we'll continue to monitor this weekend's threat, including city-by-city timing. Jackson, Mississippi, a place we are going to be watching very closely, particularly during the afternoon hours on Sunday.
The transmission of viruses from wildlife to humans, accelerating and intensifying. A warming planet and habitat destruction, adding fuel to the fire. The coronavirus pandemic, not inevitable, but a potential consequence of the way we live our lives.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Mike Bettis, and tonight we'll explore how the COVID-19 pandemic became a global crisis, and there are those who saw it coming. There were clues in the form of climate change and deforestation, resulting in unnatural sharing of habitats between humans and certain animals. Meteorologist Carl Parker explains how it became a toxic relationship.
When we talk about emerging viral threat, one of the realities is that the 21st century will in fact be a period of accelerated and intensified spillover of viruses from wildlife into people.
Dr. Dennis Carroll is an infectious disease expert and president of the Global Virome Project, aimed at lowering the risk of harm from future viral outbreaks.
Think of influenza as one viral family, coronavirus as another viral family. That there are 1.6 million viruses in 25 different viral families today circulating in wildlife populations.
Now, coronaviruses have two things in common. They're zoonotic, which means they jump from animals to people, and most started in Asia or Africa. And there's a reason for that.
What's driving that acceleration and intensification is, quite frankly, population pressures. In 100 years, 10 centuries, we've added 6 billion more people onto this planet. And before the end of the 21st century, we'll add another 4 billion. That incredible intensification of human population has totally transformed, if you will, the footprint we have on this planet.
That footprint includes increased urbanization in both Asia and Africa. In East Asia, for example, nearly 200 million people moved from rural areas to cities in just 10 years, from 2000 to 2010.
Everything on this planet depends on a temperature, a precipitation regime, which way the wind is blowing. And by changing these foundations of life on Earth, we should absolutely expect nature to behave differently.
The migration destroyed wildlife habitats on an enormous scale. Forests were cut down to build homes and for agriculture. As a result, people are living closer to wildlife, and some of those animals harbor novel or new pathogens. As director of Harvard's Sea Change, Dr. Aaron Bernstein studies the health impacts and the environment.
Evidence as we see it now makes it abundantly clear that if you want to prevent disease emergence like COVID, we would not be doing what we're doing to the climate.
This problem is made worse by the $75 billion wildlife trade with few controls and the abundance of live animal markets in these regions. Here's how the transmission chain works. First, forests are cut down, and the habitat loss drives out and kills off a lot of the wildlife. But there are some species that thrive when habitats are torn apart. Rodents and bats are two of them, and both are known to carry viruses which cause infectious disease in humans. Where it gets trickier is what happens from there. We don't know the precise links in the case of the new coronavirus, but we do know that viruses can be passed to new animal hosts. When many animals are in close proximity at live animal markets, the result is a powder keg of cross-species transmission of viruses, which can potentially spill over to humans.
We should, again, have every expectation, knowing that we swim in a common germ pool with all life forms, that if we're changing our relationships, either in the case of overfishing in the Atlantic or in deforestation and changing where animals can get food, that creates conditions favorable to disease emergence.
As our environment and climate changes, if we hope to reduce the risk of future pandemics, experts say these regions will need to adopt risk reduction strategies, including minimizing deforestation and animal-human interaction. But more than anything, we need to recognize that this is a global problem.
I think COVID makes abundantly clear that whether we're talking about climate or preparedness, international relations are paramount, and we simply cannot afford to live in the world where people are increasingly looking at each other as the other. That will not suffice, and we must do better.
Some startling numbers there and so profound predictions. Now, when we come back here on the Weather Channel, scientists on the front lines searching for the next killer virus. That when Pandemic Prophecy comes back right here on the Weather Channel. Well, for many, the coronavirus pandemic seemingly came out of nowhere, but that's not necessarily the case, especially as our planet continues to warm. Scientists have long warned that climate change will impact not just our environment, but also our health by increasing rates of infectious disease. And there are researchers who are doing their best to identify and stop the next potential pandemic. Meteorologist Chris Warren shows us why their job is getting even harder.
In the war on COVID-19, there is the front line, the doctors, the nurses, the caregivers, but there's also the covert ops, another group of men and women who put themselves in harm's way. They are known as the virus hunters, always on the search for the next killer viruses.
So a virus hunter is a term that gets thrown out a lot, but really it's a scientist who seeks to understand the cause for disease.
Dr. John Epstein is a world-renowned researcher in the field of zoonotic viruses such as Nipah virus, Ebola, and SARS. In 2004, he was part of a team of Chinese, Australian, and American scientists that identified bats as the natural wildlife reservoir for SARS coronavirus in China. His mission? Find out where a mystery pathogen comes from.
It might be a human disease, and looking for a new virus that hasn't yet been identified, making that identification and describing that virus, how it relates to the disease that's presented, whether it's in people or it might also be in animals.
Having studied both SARS in China and MERS in the Middle East, Epstein has seen more human interference over the last 15 years in the way viruses originate and spread, including outdoor wet markets.
These activities are bringing wild animals from all over the place into very unhygienic conditions where cages are stacked on top of each other, where animals are handled by people with no precautions really about getting infected, butchered with bare hands, and then other animals are touched. This is a perfect recipe for animals sharing viruses with each other and for animal viruses getting into people.
What we've seen over the last several decades is a steady increase in the frequency and the intensity of the spillover event, the movement of those viruses from animals into people.
Humans are vulnerable to new viruses all the time, but we are speeding up changes in our environment as we encroach upon wildlife habitats, pollute the atmosphere, and commingle with infectious disease carriers.
There's an irony here that the dual threats that we look at as we're moving into the 21st century of increased threats from emerging viral diseases and the increased threat of extreme weather events. They're very closely associated with one shared ecologic event being driven by increased population, and that's land use change, and in particular, how we raise cattle as a way of feeding the populations of the world.
In the last 100 years, Earth's population has increased by 6 billion. More people means more farming to feed them. More farming requires more land to feed livestock. More land requires us to move into habitats with wildlife that we may never have encountered before. And that wildlife often carries new pathogens that are lethal to humans.
We have to do a much better job at acting on the information we have to change behaviors that we know are high risk. So yes, this was preventable, and the next one will be too. And it's our job now to make sure as a global society, we work harder to try to prevent the next one from happening.
I want to bring in now our Dr. Rick Knabb. Dr. Knabb, knowing how some of these viruses originate and how they spread, do we have a serious hygiene issue, especially in developing countries?
Well, I think that applies to just about all of us in many ways. I mean, certainly, as the piece points out, we have to do better at the hygiene in the open markets when you're in contact with all those different animals. But if you look around at our society here in the United States, for example, there are a lot of ways that we do business that maybe we've learned on a day-to-day basis that we could change our overall hygiene. I mean, I notice a lot more people washing their hands in places that maybe they didn't do it as often as we used to. So and how we handle keeping disease from spreading, no matter what kind of virus it is. I think we're all learning about hygiene in a brand new way that could help us in the long run.
Do you think that some traditions that we have may go by the wayside after that? For instance, something like a handshake. Could you see us pulling back on doing handshakes?
Boy, in our society in the U.S., that seems like a tall order. But after this, I could see there being a little bit more fist pump, a little bit more of the elbow, a little bit more of the, kicking the feet, and knowing how viruses spread so much more than we used to. This could lead to some changes, but I think overall that'll take a while more than it would in for example, Asian countries where bowing and other forms of greeting are more prevalent.
Do you think that there would have to be policy enacted to make something like that a reality?
Wow. I think it's going to be social norms. It's all of us deciding that we want to do things differently.
All right, Dr. Knabb, thanks so much for your insight. And we've got a lot more to come here tonight on the Weather Channel. Air pollution's deadly connection with the coronavirus.
With COVID, nature's really trying to tell us something. And frankly, it's trying to rid us of a dangerous delusion we have that our health is separate from the environment.
We've got a sobering look at how the atmosphere we live in is increasing the threat of diseases worldwide. That's when Pandemic Prophecy, right here on the Weather Channel, returns. You're watching Pandemic Prophecy as we examine the relationship between the coronavirus and our changing climate. What has long been thought is now confirmed. If you live where there's a lot of pollution, there's a higher likelihood of death if you get infected with the coronavirus. That, according to a new study. Meteorologist Stephanie Abrams looks into the connection.
With COVID, nature's really trying to tell us something. And frankly, it's trying to rid us of a dangerous delusion we have that our health is separate from the environment.
Dr. Aaron Bernstein is a pediatrician and professor at Harvard Medical School, as well as director of Harvard's Sea Change. He believes that because we have fundamentally changed the atmosphere and environment, we shouldn't be surprised diseases are emerging. A recently released study by Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health confirms the connection between air pollution and the novel coronavirus. Researchers looked at the tiny air pollutant particles, known as PM 2.5, in about 3,000 counties in the U.S. Those counties account for 98% of the U.S. population. They found that those areas with a higher PM 2.5 had higher death rates from COVID-19. And it doesn't stop there. The study also found that just a small increase in pollutant exposure led to a 20 times increase in COVID-19 deaths. The findings are consistent with warnings scientists have given before.
Pollution plays an enormous role, as you know, in more heart disease, more lung disease. And there are some experiences from the SARS outbreak that shows a negative relationship between pollution, such that if you have more pollution, you may very well be at higher risk of dying in communities that have more pollution.
In addition, there's a new sobering statistic that shows a higher death rate in people of color from COVID-19. There are most likely several reasons for this. One of them being that those living in poor neighborhoods are historically exposed to more pollution.
Health disparities have always existed for the African American community. But here again, with the crisis, how it's shining a bright light on how unacceptable that is. Because yet again, when you have a situation like the coronavirus, they are suffering disproportionately.
There's an unintended consequence of the fight against the new coronavirus. Pollution levels are decreasing worldwide as cities self-quarantine. Descartes Labs has been analyzing satellite data.
So we're seeing in major cities like LA and New York and in Canada and places like Toronto and Vancouver, a decrease in NO2 levels that is pretty stark. It's a pretty significant decrease when you compare the first several days of March of last year to the first several days of March this year.
NO2 is a noxious gas emitted by vehicles, power plants, and industrial facilities. In other words, pollution.
We're going to see tremendous health benefits. Now, just as winds are calm at the center of a hurricane, so too we will see this momentary change in health status. And in looking at this moment, we can all realize what we can get by pushing ourselves to a future that doesn't run our societies off fuels that are frankly killing us.
But these benefits are not likely to last, according to Dr. Catherine Hayhoe from Texas Tech University.
Early indications are, for example, though, that emissions from China dropped 25% during the month of February, which was when they were hardest hit. Here's the thing, though. Why did they drop? The number one reason they dropped was the reduction in industrial production. The factories and the productivity shuttering down as people had to stay home. What's going to happen as it passes? We're already seeing it. The industrial production is ramping right back up again. In some cases, it might ramp back up even further to make up for the loss during the pandemic.
Which, as a Harvard study points out, underscores the need to regulate pollution.
The only thing we cannot afford is climate inaction. It's just that simple. We don't have another planet, folks. We're not going to move to Mars.
What a golden path of opportunity we have to rise the challenge of climate change and put this dim shadow and all of its lessons firmly in our past.
I want to bring back in Dr. Rick Knabb. Dr. Knabb, how do we ensure when the next pandemic arrives that we're not putting at-risk populations, especially people of color, behind the 8 ball already?
Yeah, we have to realize that where you live definitely affects your health. Here, connect these dots. For example, we know that pollution makes asthma symptoms worse. We also know that people who get COVID, if they have underlying asthma, are more susceptible to being more severely ill from COVID-19, ill from severe illnesses, complications from COVID-19. So it is imperative that we do things to lessen pollution, and that has obviously, when climate change comes into the consideration, a global ramification on all of this as well.
Indeed it does. Dr. Knabb, thank you so much. And still to come here tonight, given all we know about the pandemic, the role of climate change, and our dwindling natural habitats, where do we go from here? Can we stop the next one? Well, before we go tonight, some final thoughts from our Dr. Rick Knabb.
Mike, I would like to remind everybody how critical the issue is of how fast our population around the world has been increasing and how that rate of increase is increasing. That should motivate us to take all steps we can to lessen the impacts of climate change and pandemics, because the greater our global population gets, the harder it is to control climate change and the harder it is to keep pandemics from starting and spreading, and remind us that pandemics and climate change can work together against us, Mike. That's why our global population increase is a big, big issue.
Dr. Knabb, thank you. And through all this, can we let science be our guide? Can we rapidly develop and globally deploy vaccines to protect humans without immunity? Only time will tell, and science will lead us. We want to thank you for watching, and remember, we are all in this together. Be safe, and good night.